الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
Islam is the second largest religion in the world after Christianity, with about 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide. As one of the three Abrahamic religions, the others being Judaism and Christianity, it too is a monotheistic faith that worships one God, called Allah. But the point is, Islam is the only religion that have pure monotheism, which makes sense without any contradictions. The word Islam means submission or surrender, as its faithful surrender to the will of Allah. Also, the very important thing is Muslims believe several prophets were sent to teach Allah's law. They respect some of the same prophets as Jews and Christians, including Abraham, Moses, Noah, and Jesus. Muslims contend that Muhammad was the final prophet, which is mentioned in Quran, and in the stories of all the prophets mentioned in the Quran are similar to their lifetimes, which also proves that what is mentioned in the Quran is actually true. Followers of Islam are called Muslims, and some important Islamic holy places include the Kaaba shrine in Mecca, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, and the Prophet Muhammad's mosque in Medina. The Quran, or Quran, is the major holy text of Islam. The Hadith is another important book, and also a central idea in Islam is jihad, which means struggle. While the term has been used negatively in mainstream culture, Muslims believe it refers to internal and external efforts to defend their faith. Although rare, this can include military jihad if a just war is needed. This term is used incorrectly by the media, while it actually means fighting with oneself and fighting against the evil within oneself. And it also means fight for right against evil, and that evil can be anyone. The Arabic word jihad is derived from the verb jahada, meaning to strive or struggle. In Islamic terminology, it means to make an effort, to endeavor and to strive for a noble cause. The word is generally used to describe any type of striving in the cause of Allah. According to Islamic teachings, there are three main types of jihad, and they all seek to establish and promote peace in society. The example of the founder of Islam, Prophet Muhammad SAW, is a very clear demonstration of this point. After 8 years of exile and being forced to fight some defensive battles against the oppressors who had the intention of killing the Muslims, including the Prophet SAW himself, and to wipe off the religion of Islam, the Prophet SAW, at the conquest of Makkah, declared a general pardon for all Makkans. They were also granted freedom to continue to practice their own religion. Some of the Makkans were so surprised at this that they did not initially believe it and still fled, including one of their leaders, Ikramah. He was called back by his wife, who reassured him that she had personally met with Prophet Muhammad SAW and confirmed that the pardon was a reality. Ikramah returned, still fearful, but when he realized the facts, he was so impressed that he chose to convert to Islam. In fact, this example is typical of the manner of spread of Islam amongst the non-Muslims during its early history. There are examples of the Muslim army fighting to protect its citizens, including those who were non-Muslims. Testimony to protection of the right of people of other religions to live and think freely and practice their own religion in an Islamic state have been repeatedly quoted by several Jewish and Christian historians relating to the early centuries of the Muslim states in Spain, Iraq, Arabia, North Africa, and Syria. Furthermore, it is evident from the Quran that people of different faiths must be free to practice their own religion. So today's media misuses it, whereas they don't know about the context of the chapter. The Prophet Muhammad, sometimes spelled Muhammad or Muhammad, was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, in AD 570. Muslims believe he was the final prophet sent by God to reveal their faith to mankind. According to Islamic texts and tradition, an angel named Gabriel visited Muhammad in 610 while he was meditating in a cave. The angel ordered Muhammad to recite the words of Allah. Muslims believe that Muhammad continued to receive revelations from Allah throughout the rest of his life. Starting in about 613, Muhammad began preaching throughout Mecca the messages he received. He taught that there was no other God but Allah, and that Muslims should devote their lives to this God. People have this misconception that Islam came into existence 1400 years ago, whereas when we read the story of prophets, we come to know that it was just the beginning of the world. In 622, Muhammad traveled from Mecca to Medina with his supporters. This journey became known as the Hijra, also spelled Hegira or Hijra, and marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. Some 7 years later, Muhammad and his many followers returned to Mecca and conquered the region. He continued to preach until his death in 632. After Muhammad's Shibrawam, what is caliphate system? When Umar was assassinated 6 years after being named caliph, Uthman, Muhammad's son-in-law, took the role. Uthman was also killed, and Ali, Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, was selected as the next caliph. During the reign of the first 4 caliphs, Arab Muslims conquered large regions in the Middle East, including Syria, Palestine, Iran, and Iraq. Islam also spread throughout areas in Europe, Africa, and Asia. The caliphate system lasted for centuries and eventually evolved into the Ottoman Empire, which controlled large regions in the Middle East from about 1517 until 1917, when World War I ended the Ottoman reign. When Prophet Muhammad died, there was debate over who should replace him as leader. This led to a schism in Islam, and 2 major sects emerged, the Sunnis and the Shiites. Sunnis make up nearly 90% of Muslims worldwide. They accept that the first 4 caliphs were the true successors to Muhammad. Shiite Muslims believe that only the Caliph Ali and his descendants are the real successors to Muhammad. They deny the legitimacy of the first 3 caliphs. Today, Shiite Muslims have a considerable presence in Iran, Iraq, and Syria. It is a fact that Muslims today are divided amongst themselves. The tragedy is that such divisions are not endorsed by Islam at all. Islam believes in fostering unity amongst its followers. The glorious Quran says, "And hold fast all together by the rope which Allah stretches out for you, and be not divided among yourselves." Al-Quran chapter 3, verse 103. The glorious Quran says, "As for those who divide their religion and break up into sects, thou hast no part in them in the least. Their affair is with Allah. He will in the end tell them the truth of all that they did." Al-Quran 6:159. In this verse, Allah Esurantun says that one should disassociate oneself from those who divide their religion and break it up into sects. It is mentioned in chapter 3, verse 52 of Al-Quran that Jesus, Piba, was a Muslim. Further, in chapter 3, verse 67, Al-Quran says that Ibrahim, Piba, was not a Jew or a Christian, but was a Muslim. Chapter 41, verse 33 says, "Who is better in speech than one who calls men to Allah, works righteousness, and says, I am of those who bow in Islam, Muslim." Al-Quran 41:33. The Quran says, "Say I am of those who bow in Islam." In other words, say, I am a Muslim. So Allah in His book don't allow to make sects, but today Muslim have miscommunication about that. Some call themselves Shia or Sunni, some say Wahhabi, some say Alawite, some say Sufism, but the don't say all these things in Quran said to call yourself Muslim. The Islamic calendar, also called the Hijra calendar, is a lunar calendar used in Islamic religious worship. The calendar began in the year AD 622, celebrating the journey of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. The Islamic calendar indicates the proper days of Islamic holidays and celebrations, including the period of fasting and prayer known as Ramadan, which occurs during the 9th month of the calendar. As in many religions, there is no single image or symbol of Islam that is universally accepted by all Muslims worldwide. The crescent moon and star has been adopted in some predominantly Muslim countries as a symbol of Islam, though the crescent moon and star image is believed to predate Islam and was originally a symbol of the Ottoman Empire. Muslims follow 5 basic pillars that are essential to their faith. These include Shahada, to declare one's faith in God and belief in Muhammad Salat, to pray 5 times a day at dawn, noon, afternoon, sunset, and evening. Zakat, to give to those in need. Psalm, to fast during Ramadan. Hajj, to make a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once during a person's lifetime, if the person is able. Islam's legal system is known as Sharia law. This faith-based code of conduct directs Muslims on how they should live in nearly every aspect of their lives. The 2 major Muslim holidays are Eid al-Adha, celebrates the Prophet Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son for Allah. Eid al-Fitr marks the end of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month of fasting. Muslims also celebrate other holidays, such as the Islamic New Year and the birth of Muhammad. There are many things going on in this society that want to defame Islam, whereas the Quran and its message are clear for the entire humanity. Because humans can make mistakes without understanding anything which is natural, and people of every religion do it. But Islam gets more prominence in this society in this matter. People still have a lot to learn.